The gymnasium fell silent as 17-year-old Madison Chen stepped off the balance beam for the last time. Her hands trembled as she removed her team jacket and placed it carefully on the bench where she had sat for countless practices over the past decade. What started as a dream to compete at the collegiate level had just ended with 3 devastating words whispered by her own coach: "You're too heavy." Madison had been gymnastics since she was 7 years old. Her parents had enrolled her at Golden Valley Gymnastics after she spent every afternoon attempting cartwheels in their backyard. From the very first day she stepped onto those spring floors, she felt like she belonged. The controlled power of a vault run, the graceful precision of beam work, the artistic expression of floor routines, everything about gymnastics spoke to her soul. For years Madison had been one of the strongest performers on her team. She wasn't the tallest or the most naturally flexible, but she possessed something that couldn't be taught, an unwavering determination and an infectious joy that lifted everyone around her. Her teammates looked up to her not just for her skills but for the way she celebrated their victories as enthusiastically as her own. But as Madison entered her junior year of high school, her body began changing in ways that the gymnastics world often refuses to accommodate. She had grown 3 inches and gained 15 pounds of muscle, changes that should have been celebrated as normal teenage development. Instead, they became a source of constant criticism from her coach Elena Petrov. Coach Petrov had been an elite gymnast in her youth before an injury ended her competitive career. She now channeled her unfulfilled Olympic dreams through her athletes with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Her training methods were old school and unforgiving. She believed that success required sacrifice, and that meant maintaining the tiny powerful physiques that had defined elite gymnastics for decades. The comments started subtly. Coach Petrov would mention that Madison needed to watch her portions at team dinners. She would suggest extra conditioning sessions to help Madison maintain her tumbling height. But as the months passed, the suggestions became demands, and the demands became personal attacks on Madison's character and dedication. Madison tried everything to meet her coach's expectations. She began restricting her food intake, counting every calorie and weighing herself multiple times per day. She added extra workout sessions before and after regular practice. She researched every possible way to lose weight while maintaining her strength. But her body was doing what healthy teenage bodies do: it was growing and developing according to its own natural timeline. The breaking point came during a team meeting 3 weeks before the state championships. Coach Petrov was discussing the lineup when she paused and looked directly at Madison. In front of the entire team, she said that Madison would not be competing in the all-around competition because her weight was affecting her performance and making the team look unprofessional. The words hit Madison like a physical blow. She had trained harder than anyone for this competition. Her routines were solid, her scores had been consistent, and she had been looking forward to competing alongside her teammates one final time before graduation. But now she was being benched not because of her abilities but because of how her body looked. That night Madison went home and made the hardest decision of her young life. She would quit gymnastics immediately. The sport that had been her identity, her passion, and her future was now a source of shame and self-doubt. She couldn't bear the thought of spending one more day in an environment where her worth was measured by a number on a scale rather than the content of her character or the effort she put forth. The next morning Madison's teammates arrived at practice to find her empty locker and a simple note explaining her decision. The gym felt different without her presence. Her absence was particularly noticed by the younger gymnasts who had looked up to her as a role model and mentor. 12-year-old Sophie Williams had joined the team just 6 months earlier. She was naturally gifted but struggled with confidence and anxiety. Madison had taken Sophie under her wing, spending extra time helping her with difficult skills and always offering encouragement when Sophie felt overwhelmed. Without Madison's steady presence, Sophie began to struggle both in practice and emotionally. Sophie's mother Jennifer noticed the change in her daughter immediately. Sophie, who had once bounded out of practice with stories and excitement, now emerged quiet and withdrawn. When Jennifer finally got Sophie to open up about what was happening, she was horrified to learn about the toxic environment that Coach Petrov had created. Jennifer Williams was not the type of person to stand by while children were being emotionally damaged. As a pediatric nurse, she understood the critical importance of positive body image and healthy relationships with food during adolescence. She knew that what was happening at Golden Valley Gymnastics was not just wrong, it was potentially dangerous to the physical and mental health of all the young athletes involved. Jennifer reached out to Madison and asked if they could meet for coffee. She wanted to understand the full scope of what had happened and see if there was anything she could do to help. When they met, Madison was initially reluctant to share her story. She had spent weeks feeling embarrassed and ashamed, wondering if maybe Coach Petrov had been right about her. But Jennifer listened without judgment and helped Madison see that the problem was not with her body or her dedication, the problem was with a system that prioritized appearance over health, performance over personal growth, and winning over the well-being of young athletes. Jennifer suggested that Madison's story needed to be heard by others. She believed that there were countless young athletes experiencing similar treatment and that Madison's voice could make a difference. Together they decided to create a video sharing Madison's experience and advocating for change in youth sports culture. Madison was nervous about going public with her story. She worried about backlash from the gymnastics community and feared that speaking out might hurt her chances of finding another gym or pursuing gymnastics in college. But Jennifer reminded her that her story could prevent other young athletes from experiencing the same pain and potentially save them from developing serious eating disorders or mental health issues. The video they created was simple and heartfelt. Madison spoke directly to the camera, sharing her love for gymnastics, her experiences with body shaming, and her decision to leave the sport she loved. She talked about the importance of treating young athletes as whole human beings rather than just bodies to be controlled and molded. She emphasized that health, strength, and happiness should be the goals of youth sports, not conforming to arbitrary and often unrealistic physical standards. Jennifer helped Madison post the video on social media and shared it within her network of parents and healthcare professionals. Neither of them expected what happened next. Within days, the video had been viewed thousands of times. Comments poured in from athletes, coaches, and parents sharing their own similar experiences. Young gymnasts from across the country reached out to thank Madison for giving voice to struggles they had been facing in silence. Parents shared stories of their children developing eating disorders or quitting sports they loved because of body shaming from coaches. The response was overwhelming but also incredibly meaningful. Madison realized that her experience was not isolated, it was part of a larger cultural problem within youth sports that needed to be addressed. She began receiving invitations to speak at gymnastics clubs and youth sports organizations about creating healthier, more supportive environments for young athletes. Madison's story also caught the attention of progressive coaches and gym owners who were working to change the culture within gymnastics. She was invited to train at several gyms that prioritized athlete well-being alongside competitive success. For the first time in months, Madison began to feel hopeful about her future in the sport she loved. 6 months after leaving Golden Valley Gymnastics, Madison was training at a new facility under coaches who celebrated her strength and supported her development as both an athlete and a person. She was preparing to compete at the college level, with several universities expressing interest in her both for her athletic abilities and her advocacy work. Meanwhile, Sophie Williams had also found a new gym where she could train in a positive, supportive environment. Her confidence had returned and she was excelling in ways she never had before. Most importantly, she was learning that her worth as an athlete and as a person was not determined by her appearance but by her effort, dedication, and character. The ripple effects of Madison's courage continued to spread. Golden Valley Gymnastics eventually parted ways with Coach Petrov after several other families came forward with similar complaints. The facility implemented new training protocols focused on athlete well-being and hired coaches committed to positive coaching methods. Madison's story became part of a larger movement advocating for change in youth sports culture. She began working with organizations dedicated to preventing eating disorders in athletes and promoting body positivity in sports. Her voice joined a growing chorus of athletes, coaches, and parents demanding that youth sports return to their fundamental purpose, helping young people develop physically, mentally, and emotionally in positive, supportive environments. Today Madison continues to compete in gymnastics while also pursuing a degree in sports psychology. She plans to become a coach herself someday, determined to create the kind of environment she wished she had experienced as a young athlete. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that speaking up against injustice, even when it's scary, can create positive change that extends far beyond our own individual circumstances. The young woman who once felt alone and ashamed in a toxic gym environment has become a beacon of hope for countless other athletes. Her courage to share her truth has helped reshape conversations about body image in sports and inspired a new generation of coaches to prioritize the well-being of their athletes above all else. Madison's journey reminds us that true strength comes not from conforming to others' expectations but from having the courage to stand up for what's right. Her story shows us that when we speak our truth with kindness and conviction, we have the power to create positive change that can touch thousands of lives. If Madison's story moved you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Pure Kindness Stories for more inspiring tales of courage, compassion, and positive change. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it, because you never know whose life might be transformed by witnessing the power of standing up for what's right. Together we can create a world where every young person feels valued, supported, and empowered to pursue their dreams in environments that celebrate their whole humanity.